A single raindrop slid down the black barrel, catching faint light before it fell into the mud with a sound too small for any ear but hers. Jessie's eyes followed it, not with distraction but with the same concentration she had given every movement since stepping off the transport. The rifle rested against her body, heavy, yet familiar, its suppressed weight more than steel. It was her heartbeat. The night pressed close. Moisture clung to her marpat sleeves, the desert camouflage darkened by rain. Her braid was damp under her helmet, a loose strand sticking to her cheek. Goggles pushed up on her Ops Corps helmet gathered droplets, reflecting faint ghost shapes of starlight. The world smelled of wet earth and rusted metal, every breath tasting faintly of the rifle's tang. Her spotter moved a half step ahead, low and deliberate, boots sinking without sound into the mire. The two advanced in silence, linked by ritual more than words. When comms whispered, it was only fragments whined steady. 2 degrees west. Pace, 30 seconds. Each syllable clipped short. Words carried weight in this dark, and none could be wasted. They reached the rise where the compound's faint lights smeared through drizzle. Jessie lowered to her knees. Gloves, already torn across the knuckles, pressing into slick clay. Blood from a cut mingled with the grit, but she ignored the sting. She carried her weapon in silence, rifle hugged close as if it were a lung she could not breathe without. The spotter signaled with 2 fingers and slid forward, brushing aside ferns that glistened under mist. Jessie followed. Her plate carrier creaked once as she flattened onto her stomach, crawling low. Mud slicked across her chest, filling seams, dampening fabric until her uniform clung heavy and cold. She breathed shallow, mindful of noise. An insect buzzed near her ear, brushed her cheek, then vanished into the dark. She did not flinch. The hide was chosen hours earlier, scouted from maps, satellite stills, and instinct. A natural depression beneath an overhang, fringed with scrub, screened by tangled brush. Here they could lie unseen, yet command a clear view of the road where the target was expected. Together, they built the nest. Not construction, but subtraction, shifting leaves, shaping earth, dragging camo netting over branches, pressing mud into exposed edges. Each gesture was slow, careful, deliberate. Silence ruled. The forest carried its own noises, distant frogs, dripping branches, faint engines from miles away. Against these, any careless scrape would be betrayal. Jessie laid her rifle out in front of her, metal kissed by rain. She checked it as she always did. Bolt smooth, chamber clean, suppressor fitted, scope lens capped until the right moment. Her gloved fingers tightened laces on the bipod, tore open a packet of silica to slip against the stock, and adjusted the sling across her shoulder. The cuts across her gloves reopened slightly, red seeping into fabric, but she didn't break rhythm. Her dope card was already strapped tight to her forearm, numbers written small, neat, precise. Each digit was a fragment of control, ranges, drops, wind calls. To her, it was more than data. It was the line between failure and survival, between patience wasted and precision delivered. She glanced at it once, then again, committing the intervals to the rhythm of her breath. Numbers steadied her. Numbers meant order. The spotter laid beside her, angled to cover flanks. He adjusted his scope, whispered ranges in intervals of 500 meters, marking landmarks in murmured code. Jessie listened, silent, her focus narrowing. Rain ticked against her helmet. A strand of hair, damp and stubborn, brushed her cheek again. She ignored it. The world shrank to sensations. Gloves pressed into mud, the weight of the rifle against her shoulder, the cold bite of rain rolling down the barrel. Each detail was both intrusion and tether. Patience required surrender. She scanned the compound through faint light fences shadowed by brush, faint figures moving in the glow of lamps. The HVT would come, they had been told. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Perhaps days. The mission was not about arrival, but about waiting until arrival. Her breathing slowed. She pressed cheek to stock, eyes behind lens covers, though she had not yet drawn them back. The rifle was an extension of her chest. It rose and fell with her. It was her rhythm, her heartbeat. The insects returned, hovering, brushing her cheek again, crawling across her neck beneath collar and braid. She did not swat. To move was to risk. She endured. In that stillness, her patience was a weapon sharper than steel. The spotter whispered, "Window 1, closed." Lights dimmed. Next watch. 40 minutes. She acknowledged with a slow blink. Nothing more. Her voice remained inside her head, clipped into internal rhythm. Patience. Control. Endure. Another raindrop traced down the barrel, lingered at the suppressor's lip, then fell. She watched it fall into mud, disappear. The rifle did not move. Her hand did not twitch. She drew a deep breath. Shallow release. Her gloves shifted on the rifle's stock, blood and rain mixing into dark stains. Her braid pressed damp against her collar. The world seemed to narrow, close in. Silence her more than any command. This was the real beginning. Not the kill, not the exfil, not even the sighting. The battle had already started the moment she laid her rifle down and surrendered movement. The first enemy was not the officer to come. It was time itself. Her patience would be tested with hours that felt like years, with insects, with hunger, with rain carving channels through mud and willpower alike. The endurance would not be about strength of arms, but stillness of breath. Jessie shifted once, small, precise, and then still again. Her final act of readiness was ritual, checking the dope card aligned, scope shield closed, sling tight, bipod sunk, all in order, all correct. She exhaled. One raindrop lingered on the edge of her barrel, clinging in silence before falling. Her breath was steady, her body still. The silence folded around her like earth itself. The wait had begun. Time stretched thin, then folded back on itself. Hours blurred into one another, marked only by the rhythm of rain on leaves and the slow rotation of watches. Jessie lay still in the hide, cheek pressed against the stock of her rifle. It had become her anchor, her heartbeat. The compound breathed in cycles. Lamps flicked on at dusk, faded before dawn. Patrols changed with mechanical precision, men walking the same arcs, dogs straining against their leashes, engines rumbling at intervals. Jessie began to predict as if she were inside their clock. The monotony was its own weight. Routine could kill as surely as chaos. Her body protested in whispers. Numbness crept into her legs first, then her shoulders. A tremor started in her hand but was stilled by sheer force of will. Torn gloves stuck to her skin, damp with blood from reopened cuts. She let the pain exist. Let it fuse with the cold that seeped through her uniform until it became one continuous ache. The hydration tube pressed against her cheek was her only mercy. She sipped in silence, careful not to draw air bubbles that might hiss. The water was lukewarm, tinged with rubber. It did not matter. It kept her alive. Morning bled into noon. Noon sagged into dusk. Each dawn was a slow smear of pale light over the compound's walls. Each night was the same low chorus of frogs and the metallic rattle of distant trucks. Jessie marked the passage of time not by clocks but by the sound of rain thickening, thinning, stopping, and beginning again. Her dope card had begun to blur. Moisture condensed beneath the laminate, smudging numbers she had written with precision. She traced them with her eyes anyway, reconstructing what she already knew by memory. Each figure was a tether, a line of control in the fog of repetition. An insect crawled across her cheek, antennae brushing skin. She ignored it. Another scuttled along the torn seam of her glove, probing the opening as if searching for warmth. She ignored that too. To swat would mean movement. To move would mean failure. The insects became part of the landscape, tests she endured, reminders that patience was her only weapon here. A shepherd passed once, just beyond the tree line. His flock moved like a gray tide, hooves thudding, wool brushing branches. The man's voice carried low, calling, coaxing. Jessie's finger twitched near the trigger at the sound of a dog bark. The animal paused, ears pricked, head tilting toward her hide. Her pulse slowed, breath held. For long seconds, the dog stared at nothing and everything. Then it turned, chasing a lamb that had strayed too far. She exhaled, slow. Her rifle did not move. The heartbeat continued. Later, a motorcycle rattled along the road toward the compound. Its headlamp cut a pale line through drizzle. Jessie followed it in her scope. Lens cover slid just enough to peer. The rider wore a scarf, goggles fogged with moisture. He dismounted, exchanged words at the gate, then vanished inside. No target. Just another man. Just another reminder that the hours were endless. Her spotter whispered sometimes. Numbers, landmarks, weather, always clipped, never more than necessary. They shared silence as if it were language. He adjusted his scope, tapped her arm once to remind her of a wind shift. She responded by brushing condensation off her lens, careful, ritualistic. The rain had blurred the glass again. She tucked her braid tighter under her helmet, mud clinging to strands that refused to stay hidden. Every adjustment was deliberate. Every ritual was survival. She checked her wind meter, breathed against her cheek pad, shifted her hydration tube, and read her dope card aloud in her mind. Again, again, again. Doubt crept in as shadows lengthened. What if the intelligence was flawed? What if the target would never appear? Was this days-long crawl into silence nothing more than an exercise in futility? Jessie smothered the thoughts as quickly as they came, but their residue remained like smoke in a closed room. Patience was a weapon, but doubt was a poison that seeped under discipline. The rain began again. Drops slid slowly down the barrel, collecting at the suppressor before falling into mud. She watched them fall, one after another, each a mark of time passing. The repetition was unbearable, but also the point. Every drop was a test. Patrols shifted again. Men with rifles walked their pattern, boots crunching wet ground. Their radios crackled with static and meaningless chatter. Jessie's eyes tracked them in her scope, but her finger did not move. None of them mattered. Not yet. She sipped water, checked wind, adjusted the dope card strap, drew a long breath, held it, released it. She repeated the cycle until it became indistinguishable from prayer. Night fell heavy again. The compound lit with orange lamps. Figures moved inside, shadows against curtains, laughter faint through the rain. Jessie lay in the mud, eyes narrowed, body rigid. The rifle pressed into her shoulder, constant and unyielding. It was her anchor, her pulse, her heartbeat. Another insect crawled across her cheek. She ignored it. Another raindrop slid down the barrel. She watched it fall. Another patrol passed, unaware of eyes locked on them. She remained still. Every minute was endurance. Every hour was battle. The shot would come later, but the war had already begun. She breathed once more, steady, slow. Her rifle fused to her body like a rib. The world around her moved. Shepherds, patrols, dogs, rain. But she did not. She surrendered to stillness, to silence, to patience. The rifle was heartbeat. The weight was the war. And Jessie lay in silence, locked, waiting for the world to finally shift. The voice in her ear was barely more than breath. Movement. East Gate. Confirming. Jessie's body stiffened without shifting. The mud pressed against her chest, the rifle already part of her shoulder. She blinked once. Slowly. Her vision narrowing to the faint smear of light at the compound's edge. Days of waiting, of stillness and silence, collapsed into a single whisper. The gate opened. A convoy rolled through. 2 vehicles. Headlights dimmed. Figures dismounted. Shadows lengthened in the drizzle. And then, in the midst of them, a taller man emerged. The spotters whisper, HVT, range 900. Adjust. Jessie's breath shortened. She slid the rifle forward with a measured push, torn gloves squeaking faintly against the stock. Her cheek pressed harder into the pad. She did not rush. Every motion was ritual, every gesture deliberate. Her left hand rotated the elevation turret. Clicks counted. Each one matched the neat numbers on her dope card, strapped to her forearm, smudged with condensation. She double-checked wind. Rain drifted sideways, carried by a breeze that tugged weakly through the trees. Her spotter murmured the call, wind, 1 point left. Hold steady. The world shrank. Rain fell slower, thicker. Sound dampened until there was only the hush of her own lungs. The rifle became her pulse. Her body did not exist except where it touched the stock, the trigger, the damp earth. Through the scope, the officer walked casually, gesturing to men around him. His collar was up against the rain, face partly hidden by shadow. He was close enough to be clear, far enough to feel distant, almost unreal. A life framed in glass. Jessie steadied the crosshairs on his chest. Her breath. In. Out. Hold. The crosshairs drifted slightly. She adjusted. Her finger touched the trigger. Light. Careful. Pressure. Without intent. Then, movement. Civilians wandered into the lane. A woman carrying bundles of firewood. 2 children darted past her legs. Jessie froze. The crosshairs hovered, but she did not squeeze. The spotter muttered, hold, wait it out. Patience burned. Her chest ached from the breath she was holding. She released slowly, refilled, let the scope fog for an instant, then cleared with another blink. The civilians passed, vanished into shadows. The officer laughed at something one of his escorts said. Jessie's finger returned. Again. The crosshairs settled. Again. The rhythm of breath matched the rifle's stillness. An insect crawled across her lens. Small legs tickled the glass, distorting the reticle with its body. Jessie did not move. Sweat and rain stung her eyes as she waited for it to pass. It lingered, walking in lazy arcs across the target's chest. She blinked once, blinked twice. Her jaw clenched. Patience held. Finally, the insect fluttered away. The crosshairs cleared. The world snapped sharp again. Her spotter whispered, 900 confirmed. Wind steady. You're good. The words hung like punctuation marks in the silence. She adjusted elevation one more time. Her gloves left dark streaks of mud on the turret. A raindrop slid down the scope, silvered in the glow of faint light, cutting a wavering line across her sight picture. She tilted just enough to clear it. Nothing wasted. Nothing extra. The officer turned, speaking to a guard. His profile caught a lamp, light glinting across his face. Real. Human. Jessie's heartbeat slowed, steadied, fused with the rifle's weight, and doubt came. What if this man had no warning? What if the mission was built on flawed intelligence? A single life held in her glass could shift wars, but it was still a single life. Her finger hovered, trembled slightly. The spotter's voice cut into her thoughts. Send it when ready. Her breathing slowed again. In, out, hold. The rifle was her body. The scope was her eye. The dope card was her mind. Numbers turned into fate. Everything else was noise. Another distraction. Light glancing off a window behind the officer, flaring in her optics. She shifted an inch, waited for the flare to fade. Every obstacle demanded stillness, demanded patience. Her body ached from holding position, muscles burning, but movement was death. Discipline was life. The officer paused, looked skyward for a moment, rain striking his face. Jesse's crosshairs rested just above his sternum. Her finger pressed. Not yet enough. Her heart slowed, each beat a drum. The rain seemed to stop midair. The insects vanished. The compound noise faded into nothing. Only her, the rifle, the heartbeat. She inhaled, held it, waited on the edge of judgment. The act of killing was not the squeeze, not the sound, not the recoil. It was everything before. The infinite seconds stretched thin, the endless micro-decisions, the patience weaponized against doubt. The shot was already alive, suspended in her discipline. Jessie remained still, poised, breath locked, the rifle fused to her chest, waiting, balanced forever on the edge of judgment. The shot cracked, suppressed, muted, but still heavy in the air. To Jessie it was thunder, judgment, finality. The officer dropped, knees buckling, body folding into mud. For a moment, silence held. Then chaos erupted. Shouts split the compound. Radios screamed, escorts scrambled. Rifles lifted, barrels swinging toward shadows they could not see. Dogs barked, chains rattled, boots thundered across wet ground. Jessie didn't wait. Bolt cycled smooth. Brass casing flicked into the mud, glinting once before vanishing in rain. Her finger eased from the trigger. Rifle lowered. She slid it into carry position, motion deliberate, precise. Her heartbeat was no longer in the steel. It hammered inside her chest. The spotter pressed her arm once. No words. They knew the drill. Egress. Now. They moved as one. Low. Fast. Silent. Mud sucked at their boots. Heavy and greedy. Roots clawed at their gloves. Reopening cuts. Blood mixing with rain. Jessie gritted her teeth. Braid whipping against her helmet rim. Plastered wet against her neck. Every step was drag and weight. But discipline drove her forward. Behind them, the compound boiled. Searchlights cut swathes of white through the dark. Engines roared alive. Orders barked sharp, clipped. The enemy scrambled like ants, yet directionless, blind to where death had come from. The forest offered no mercy. Every branch was a snare, every root a trip, every leaf a noise too loud. Jessie crawled low through brush, belly to mud, rifle hugged against her body. Her heartbeat thudded against the stock. Her breath came sharp, measured, suppressed to silence. A shout cut closer. Boots hammered down the slope. Radios hissed static. Voices drew near. Jessie pressed flat, face in mud, cheek cold against earth. A patrol passed above, boots inches from her head. Rain drummed against helmets, masks, rifles. One man paused, turned. Jessie held her breath, heartbeat slamming against ribs. The man spat, adjusted strap, moved on. She exhaled. Slow. Her spotter nudged forward. They slid into darker brush, crawling with reptile patience. Branches tore her gloves. A bramble caught, ripping fabric further. Blood seeping fresh. She didn't look. Pain was irrelevant. Survival was everything. The rifle remained steady against her shoulder, barrel low, weight heavy but anchoring. A shot cracked behind them, wild, panicked. Bark exploded above her head, splinters rained down, hot against wet skin. Jessie pressed deeper into the mud, her chest screaming for air. Another shot snapped past, grazing wood, echoing far too close. The enemy fired blind, spraying into night. Still, every bullet was a reminder. Silence had shattered. The spotter gestured sharp. Move. They crawled faster now, mud sucking, tearing, slowing. Muscles burned. Every inch forward felt stolen. Jessie's breath rasped in her headset. Not words, just effort. Another flare lit sky, orange, harsh, tearing shadows into shapes. Jessie froze, body flattened, rifle clutched. The light passed, faded. Darkness reclaimed them. She moved again, inch by inch. Time stretched. Every sound was threat frogs croaking, branches snapping, men shouting in the distance. Every breath was weighed, every shift calculated. This was the war after the shot, the test of endurance, of patience under pursuit. Her braid clung heavy to her neck, rain-soaked, grit tangled in strands. Her boots were leaden, mud dragging with each step. Blood seeped from her glove, mixing with rain, slick against her rifle's grip. The weapon dug into her chest with every crawl, every climb, burden, anchor, heartbeat. The forest thickened. A stream blocked their path, current swollen by rain. No choice. Jessie slid in, water swallowing her chest, rifle held high, cold bit bone. She kicked through, boots heavy, braid floating like drowned rope. On the far bank she clawed up, gloves slipping, nails tearing, body heaving with effort. The spotter hauled her once, then shoved her forward. They collapsed into brush, gasping, soaked, alive. Behind, voices echoed, searchlights probed tree line, beams slicing just shy of their path. Jessie pressed low again, body a shadow. Her chest heaved, heartbeat loud in her ears, louder than rain. Minutes bled into more, crawl, freeze, crawl again. Every motion deliberate, every pause absolute. Judgment was not just the shot. It was every decision afterward, every inch of ground stolen from the enemy. At last, the forest thinned. The extraction zone lay ahead, an opening by a broken wall, marked only by shadow. Jessie staggered upright, legs trembling, boots sloshing. The spotter moved beside her, rifle angled, head low. They reached the zone and dropped again, hidden in cover. Silence returned. Radios still screamed in the distance, engines still revved, but none near. The hunt had passed them by. Jessie sat back against a tree, mud streaking her marpat, plate carrier heavy with water and grit. Her braid plastered flat against her helmet rim, gloves torn open, knuckles raw and bleeding. The rifle lay across her lap, dark, heavy, silent, smoke gone, memory fresh. The casing she had ejected still glinted somewhere behind, half buried in mud, a mark of judgment left in the earth. She felt its absence like a ghost. Rain mingled with sweat and blood, dripping down her face, sliding off her rifle. Her heartbeat slowed, still fierce, but steady now. The silence crept back, folding over them, sealing away the chaos. The shot had ended one life. The echo had carried across miles, but its weight lived on, in mud, in blood, in silence reclaimed. Jessie closed her eyes once, then opened them, steady. The rifle pressed against her still. Burden, anchor, heartbeat, eternal. The extraction point was nothing more than a clearing framed by broken stone and a hollow tree, yet it felt like the far edge of the world. Jessie and her spotter collapsed into the shadow of the wall, lungs heaving, clothes soaked, boots heavy with mud. Behind them, the compound was still alive with shouts, engines, searchlights cutting through rain. But the hunt had turned elsewhere. Here, silence reclaimed them. The spotter leaned back against the wall, pulled his headset slightly to the side, and exhaled long. He looked at Jessie once, said nothing, then reached into his pouch and held out a ration bar. She shook her head. He broke it in half, pressed it into her hand anyway. Wordless acknowledgement, shared survival. Her gloves were torn through completely now, fabric ragged, blood seeping dark through seams. She stripped them off slowly, fingers raw, knuckles scraped open. The cool rain stung the cuts. She flexed her hands once, then let them rest on her rifle. It was still across her lap, heavy, silent, no longer smoking. A weapon, yes, but more than that, it was her anchor, her pulse, her heartbeat. For days it had carried her stillness, her silence, her patience. Now it sat inert, nothing but steel and mud, yet its weight lingered in her chest. Jessie pulled a cloth from her kit, already soaked but serviceable. She wiped the scope first, clearing streaks of water and mud. She checked the barrel, pushing a swab through, ensuring no grit would foul the next round. The motions were methodical, ritual, carried out with the same precision as the shot itself. Her dope card was next. She peeled it from her forearm, laminate slick with condensation, numbers blurred, ink smudged, but the lines were still there, control captured in digits. She folded it carefully, tucked it into a pouch like a secret ledger. Its job was done. The spotter lit a cigarette, cupped in his hand to shield it from the rain. He didn't offer her one. He knew she wouldn't take it. Instead, he leaned his head back, smoke mixing with mist, a thin gray ribbon vanishing into night. Her braid was plastered to the rim of her helmet, strands stuck against her cheek. She peeled it free, twisted it back into place, tucked it under the strap. A small human gesture, almost absurd in its normality, yet necessary. The braid was hers, not the Corps', not the mission's. Hers. Their exfil came quick, a low hum of rotor blades beyond the ridge. The bird didn't linger, didn't circle. It dipped once, signaling. They moved with what strength they had left, bodies dragging through brush, boots scuffed raw by miles of crawling. The ramp dropped. They climbed in. No words. Inside, the world shrank to noise engines, rotor wash, clipped comms. Jessie slumped against the side, plate carrier streaked with grit, Marpat caked in mud. She rested the rifle against her knees, hands folded on stock. The spotter sat opposite, cigarette stub crushed under his boot, eyes closed but not asleep. When the bird touched down again, it was not triumph that waited. It was procedure, sterile, cold. The debrief was conducted in a gray tent, light too bright, air thick with damp. Jessie stood straight, rifle slung, helmet under her arm, braid still damp and heavy against her back. The officer asked questions in monotone. She answered in clipped precision. Target confirmed, neutralized. Yes. Range 900. Conditions. Rain. Crosswind 1 point left. Complications. Civilians in lane. Delay. Corrected. Each word was efficient, without inflection. She gave them what they wanted. Facts. Measurements. The clean skeleton of the operation. The echo of the shot did not enter the report. The rain on her rifle barrel did not enter. The insect crawling across her cheek did not enter. Those belonged only to her. When it was over, she stepped outside. The night was quieter here, away from the compound's chaos, away from the tense light. She found a bench beneath a corrugated awning, sat down, set her rifle across her lap. Her hands were shaking now, small tremors running through raw fingers. She ignored them. She peeled the last strip of cloth from her kit, bound her knuckles, slow and steady. Blood seeped through anyway. She let it. The rifle sat silent, heavy, eternal. Her hands rested on it, steadying themselves against its weight. She thought of the brass casing still out there in the mud, half buried, glinting in the rain, a marker left behind. Proof, not for command, but for the earth itself. Another raindrop slid down the barrel, catching faint light before it fell to the ground. She watched it drop, disappear into mud. One more mark of time, one more reminder that patience endured beyond violence. Her mind replayed the moment again. The officer's face half shadowed, the crosshairs centered, the hesitation, the squeeze, the fall, the echo like judgment. It would replay again tomorrow, and again after that. The shot was only a second long. Its weight would stretch for years. The spotter joined her, sat without speaking. He placed another ration bar on the bench between them. She didn't touch it. He didn't insist. They sat in silence, rain pattering on the awning, insects buzzing faintly in the dark. 2 Marines. Alive. That was enough. Jessie leaned back, exhaled. The night pressed close, but not heavy. Silence folded around her, Not oppressive now, but absolute. She let it in. Let it cover the noise. Let it hold her still. The mission was done. The HVT was dead. But the true battle had not been the kill. It had been the waiting, the stillness, the silence, the endurance that carved hours into days, patience into weapon. The shot had been punctuation. Everything else was the story. Her hands steadied. Her breath slowed. She rested her palm against the rifle, feeling its cold weight, its steady presence, burden, anchor, heartbeat. The final raindrop slipped from the barrel, struck the ground, and was gone. Jessie sat in silence, rifle across her lap, eyes forward. The war would move on. Patience remained.